Hey there everyone, welcome to the UkeStuff channel and welcome to this UkeGuide review of the Donner DUS-10 series ukulele. This is the 10B, which I'm pretty sure stands for the blue. Now, just a couple notes. First of all, I am recording this on the new iPhone 13, just upgraded. I'm not using an external microphone because I want to see how this phone does with audio recording. So if the audio seems different than other videos, that would explain it. Now, what we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at subjective categories that I look at with every instrument. Then we'll take a look at specifications. Then I'll summarize and give a UkeGuide rating where I give every ukulele rating out of 5 possible ukuleles. Now, if you like these videos, there's a couple things you can do to help out. First of all, like the video. Second, you can subscribe to the channel. And third, if you ever want to make a donation to this work and say, hey, thanks for making these videos, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/UkeStuff. All right, let's begin with those subjective issues. The first is cost. Right now, they are selling on Amazon for $44 or so, within $1 or so of that, and they're selling for $49.99 on Donner's own website. This was on sale for $20, and that's when I bought it. So it was not sent to me for a review, bought it out of my own pocket. And well, let's talk about value and what else you get with it. So it is a very much an entry level painted ukulele made out of laminate maple. We'll talk more about that in a second, but let me show you the things you get with it. First of all, the bag is a drawstring bag. Ultimately, these don't offer much protection. I actually do think that it can be an upgrade over some of the just plain dust cover bags, as long as the ukulele can fit all the way into the bag. That's the only issue. I've seen some of these where it doesn't fit all the way in, but that isn't the case here. And really, that's not going to offer much protection to a painted ukulele, but it does give you a way to carry it around, sort of like a backpack if you want to use those straps that way. I used to work at a high school teaching music where we only let students carry their books around in bags like that. So it's functional. It's sort of a canvasy bag, not a plastic bag at all. No major complaints of that, but it just doesn't offer much protection. Now, the other things you get, well, you get the picks that come with most ukuleles, and they're plastic picks. I've had conversations with some people that talk about how plastic picks are just fine. The Ukulele Orchestra of Great Britain uses them and so forth. But here's the deal. I just was talking with another teacher friend at an education ukulele event, and they shared with me that the ukuleles that their school has, they were cutting out picks out of like plastic, like old credit cards and things, and kids were making their own picks, which they had a great time doing, and ukuleles are being destroyed. And at some point I'll make a video about that, but these instruments are not really made to stand up to the destruction of a plastic pick. Yeah, you can do it, and if you play carefully you can, but most beginners, probably not a good idea. Other things you get one of my least favorite types of straps. This is what I call a lanyard strap that goes around your neck and then has a little thing that clips in the sound hole. And that does help you hold it. However, if you let go of the ukulele, it's gonna roll right out and hit the ground. So I'm not a big fan of those, although Jake Shimabukuro plays on a lanyard strap of sorts. So it's not that they're the worst thing ultimately in the world or that you can't play with it. It's just I like the added security of a strap button and being able to actually let go of the ukulele without having to worry about holding it all the time. You get another set of strings. I'm betting that these are the same as the ones that are on it, and they're not great strings. So again, probably not worth the money there. You get a little booklet with some links, I think maybe even to some lessons, and a cleaning cloth, and then probably the most valuable piece of all the kit, which is a tuner, which is great. I mean, nothing wrong with a tuner, and that level of accuracy is going to be good enough to get you into whatever you need to, do to tune up your ukulele. So the value of the ukulele at $20 is pretty good, but at $43, it's probably just above really its value. And the reason is that for just a few more dollars from that $43 price point or $44 price point, you can get into a pretty decent $60 to $80 range beginner ukulele from any number of companies. That's just a better ukulele and a better kit overall. So yeah, I mean, it might be one of the, especially at $20, it might be one of the cheapest way to get into an ukulele. And it is an ukulele that has the potential to work really well as an ukulele. Not a great sounding ukulele. That's for a little bit later in the video. But in terms of just what you're getting at $20 is pretty good. But again, still just for just a little bit more money, you can get into such a better ukulele. So again, what I'd say is the value is just above being at cost, especially at the current prices. Now the build quality, overall, the build is okay. It's actually pretty clean, but you can see some things. For example, it's pretty thick laminate, which more than anything else impacts the sound and makes the instrument not as resonant as it could be. I mean, that's a pretty, you can thump it pretty hard and get some echoes, but there are other ukuleles that you can just tap a little bit and they sound like a drum. Not this one. There's some scruffy tool markings right on the fretboard, especially at the bottom. The sound hole paint isn't even. Now on the good side, there's no like overspray on the inside. We'll take a look at the inside in just a moment. The tuners work and they're on pretty straight, maybe off a little bit. So overall, you know, and by the way, in terms of like intonation, the frets are where they need to be, testing with the harmonics. So overall, it's built okay, but it's built super cheap. The laminate is cheap. The laminate is thick, and that's going to impact the sound. And again, you know, some scruffy paint issues here or there, some scruffy work on some of the woodwork. Now, what would you expect for $20 or $49? Probably not much more than that, but it's just good to know. Now, before we go any further with this topic of build quality, let's take a look at what it looks like on the inside. All right, let's take a look at the inside of the Donner here. There you can see one of the braces on the back. There you can see the flat kerfing on the sides, holding the top to the sides. Notice there is no tail block, and you can see the bridge plate with the screws there. Also see that brace that runs across the top. So it's a clean build, but you don't want to put a strap button on the bottom of this ukulele. And again, you can see the cheaper laminate. I'm not sure what those black dots are there. All right, let's take a look at the upper bout. Here's the upper bout. There is a neck block up there. You can get a closer view of that flat kerfing. And there's a little bit of glue there, but you know, we've seen worse in some of these ukuleles. Again, just a lower value laminate ukulele. And you can even see how the top actually looks like out of multiple pieces of wood there. And again, just more of a view of the kerfing. So that is our look on the inside of the Donner DUS-10B Soprano Ukulele. All right, we're back. So taking a look at the inside, there's nothing really terrible about it. It's pretty clean in there, but it's the cost-saving measures of thick laminate and so forth that really take away the value and the performance of the ukulele. So the build quality is absolutely passable. It's built pretty solid. It's probably pretty rugged if you drop it, other than the paint would chip or whatever. But again, it's inexpensive. I mean, I think that's the one thing that you'd have to say about it. Now, in terms of appearance, it's not unattractive. The closer you get, the cheaper it looks. From a distance, it doesn't look so bad at all. Again, I'd like to see, you know, there's a couple spots where the paint could have been done better, and that, you know, working on the sound hole to make sure that was painted right. The decal of the rosette looks just fine. It's passable, it's very plain, but it also is very inexpensive. And I think that's going to be the key word of this video, is just it's done on the cheap rather than the cheap side of quality, if that makes sense. Now, in terms of availability, if you want one of these, you can order one right now from Amazon or DonnerDeal.com, and it'll get to you very soon. And you can have one of these in your hands in just a couple of days. Now, in terms of playability, this is one of the couple of areas where this instrument really kind of lacks. The nut is narrow towards 34 millimeters, and the spacing is very narrow, close to 27 millimeters G to A, so that's really tight. In addition to that, the action is really high at the 1st fret, and it's lower than desired at the 12th fret. So you can lower action at the 1st fret, but my fear is that then that would cause buzzing elsewhere on the ukulele because the action is so low down there. So really, if you want to buy one of these and play it, or buy it for somebody to play, really you should have it set up, and that's going to add $50 or more potentially to the cost of the instrument, at which time you could have just bought a different instrument. So really, the setup issues here and the spacing is one of the red flags of this instrument. Now, moving on, the other red flag here is sound quality. And while it's certainly passable in terms of sound quality, it's also not good. So being passable does not mean good. It does have sustain, but it's on the low end. It's very boxy, tubby sound. No high-end sparkle whatsoever. It's not very loud. I mean, you can hit it hard enough that it's loud, but just on its own with a normal strum, it's not overly loud. And again, while it has sustain, it's all on that lower side, that lower frequency of the instrument. And again, I think it's because of the super, super thick laminate, and I'm sure that these nylon strings are not helping. Now, could that be impacted in a better way by fluorocarbon strings? Yeah, I think actually probably it could. And I'm going to be making a video here in the near future comparing this with a couple of the other painted ukuleles that I've reviewed. And this one will probably be going to a student of mine because I have no reason to keep it and I don't need to resell it. So before I give this one away to a student, I'll do a little comparison with a couple of those other painted ukuleles. And you'll hear the difference between this one and those other ukuleles. So yeah, the sound isn't great at all. One of the things I do in these videos is I let you see what I'm hearing using the app Tonal Energy Tuner. So on a GCEA instrument, I play the C chord. I just let you see what happens in the tonal harmony spectrum, both with the initial strum and then with the decay. So here we go. So what I'm seeing in that video is, again, the full spectrum when you play the chord, but then all the sustain is in the low end. And there is sustain, but it just sort of has that boxy, tubby sound, sort of like it's caught in there, no sparkle. Might it be worth trying other strings? Sure, but you're still gonna have to deal with a setup issue, which probably then overall is just best avoided. All right, now that we've gone through the subjective categories, let's go through the specifications. It is a soprano ukulele, and the scale length from the nut to the saddle is 13.75 inches, so a little bit longer than just a traditional soprano. Not by much, but just a little bit. There are 12 frets and 12 to the body, like many sopranos. There are no side marker dots. Now, just as a note, as we get to the rating part, I have recently put in a sort of rule that if an instrument does not have side marker dots, the highest possible rating it can get is a 3.5. So you already know without the side dots that the instrument is not going to get a rating higher than 3.5. All right, the body style is a traditional double bout ukulele. The soundboard back and sides are listed as AAA maple by Donner. Ultimately, if it is maple, it's maple laminate, so just keep that in mind. The fretboard is a flat fretboard, no radius, which appears to be made out of rosewood. And the bridge also appears to be made out of rosewood, and it is a tie bar bridge. One of the things I've heard other reviewers say is that if you're making a beginner instrument, perhaps bridges should be slotted bridges because the strings are easier to change on those. It's a good point. So something that Donner might want to think about is switching to a slotted bridge on an inexpensive ukulele that is clearly meant for beginners. The nut and saddle are both plastic on this instrument, and the saddle is not compensated, as you probably would guess. The finish is a gloss paint finish. It isn't bad, and it's almost, in some cases, almost like a semi-transparent stain a little bit, if you can see that. I'm not sure if we're seeing just gradations in the paint or if that's some of the laminate wood grain popping through, but that part certainly isn't unattractive. As some painted ukuleles go, this one actually I kind of do like the paint color and the overall effect of the paint. The length of the instrument is exactly 21 inches from the top of the crown to the bottom of the instrument, and it weighs 15 ounces. The tuners are open geared tuners that are unbranded. They work just fine. And next we'll get to the action. The action at the first fret is 1.0 millimeters, so it's really high. It needs to come down to 0.5 millimeters. And the action at the 12th fret is 2.25 millimeters. So as I said earlier in the video, I'm a little bit afraid that if you adjust the action at the nut, you're going to end up with buzzing because the action at the 12th is probably too low to move the nut that much. So that will be interesting to work with. I will probably try adjusting the height of the nut, and then if I need to, installing a different saddle before giving this to one of my students. The nut width is 34.84 millimeters, so I guess it is closer to 35, but the spacing is definitely smaller than your normal 35 millimeter nut. It's only 8.35 millimeters between each string at the first fret, 27.72 millimeters G to A. So it's really tight spacing on this one. The other thing I check on instruments is the thickness of the neck, and I do so at the 3rd fret. It just seemed to be a good spot to do that on instruments. The neck is C-shaped. It does flatten out a little bit at the top, which is nice, but it is a thick neck, 20.21 millimeters at the 3rd fret. All right, now that we've talked about the specifications of the instrument, let's get into the summary and the rating. I have seen a few Donners over time, and I have liked the Donners that I've seen. And in fact, you're going to see a few more Donners on this channel, not that I've been sent to review, but that I've purchased and am going to review. Generally, I like the brand. This instrument is a little bit of an exception to that. It's sold as a beginner instrument. It is sold as an inexpensive instrument. The problem is, two things really, is the playability of it is problematic with tight string spacing and action at the 1st fret, which is just too high. And the other part is just sort of a sound that is sort of tubby and low range. With those two things in mind, realistically, I wouldn't recommend this instrument. It's fixable to a point, but the question is, how much money do you want to put into that instrument? And if its current price is $43 or $44, and you could even get into a better Donner for $20 more, why wouldn't you do that? Unless you really wanted the painted ukulele. And even then, this isn't where I would tell you to go. I'd probably tell you to look at like Macala Dolphin or Shark. And when I do a comparison of this instrument with a couple of the other painted ones, I will throw a Macala Dolphin or two in there for you to hear as well. So realistically, this is not where I would go. Now, does it work as an ukulele? Sure. Could it be fixed? Sure. What would I fix? Again, action. You're not going to adjust the string spacing, but I would adjust the action at the 1st fret, make sure the action on the 12th fret there wasn't buzzing, and I'd probably do different strings, but you're still going to have, sort of that tubby, darker sound, mainly because of the thickness of that laminate. Now, Donner could solve part of that problem by using thinner laminate and making sure that the action at the 1st fret is spot on. And this, again, is a sort of a personal thing, but we always talk about action at the 12th fret. In fact, I remember early in my reviews and early as I was playing, I was always focused about action at the 12th fret. But in reality, the action at the 12th fret probably isn't as critical as action at the 1st fret, because when you're learning how to play, having to press down and pull down really hard and then pull notes out of tune is problematic. Now, can that be a result of the 12th fret too? Sure, but really I think even the 1st fret and action up at the nut is even more critical. So Donner really needs to fix those couple of things for this instrument to truly get a better recommendation from me. So as I rate ukuleles, I do so on a scale of 0 to 5 ukuleles. You already knew that when this one didn't have side position markers, its maximum score would be a 3.5. I think because of the not fantastic sound, because of the playability, and because of the setup of that nut and how high that is, this is a 2.0 out of 5 for me. Ultimately, whenever I give anything less than a 2.5, it's probably best to skip that instrument and look at some other choices. Now, could Donner address those issues in future batches? Absolutely. Would I be willing to look at another one down the road? Probably, but not out of my own pocket. All right, thank you so much for joining me on this video. That's our look at the Donner DUS-10B. You can find the printed PDF of the UkeGuide review at ukestuff.info or ukeguide.info. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll be back soon with some more Uke stuff for you.